Hello, my friends. I am very happy you are here with me today. Find a quiet place, take a slow breath, and let's begin a very old and very beautiful story. Today, we will travel farther than any road on earth. We will travel to the moon. We will begin at the very beginning, long before people, long before cities, long before even the first tree or fish on our world. A very long time ago, our solar system was young. It was not calm and gentle like the night sky looks now. It was full of fire, dust, rock, and violent crashes. The young Earth was still growing. And in that wild time, a world about the size of Mars is thought to have struck Earth. The blow was enormous, so great that hot material flew into space around our planet. And from that broken glowing ring, the moon began to form. Scientists think the moon formed about 60 million years after the solar system itself began to form. In space, that is very early, the new moon was not the quiet gray world we know now. It was hot, bright, and partly melted. Its surface was covered by a deep ocean of magma, a sea of rock so hot that it flowed like liquid fire. Slowly, very slowly, that great fire cooled. As the moon became solid, it also began a long dance with Earth. At first it was closer than it is now, and it moved the young oceans strongly. Over time, the moon and Earth pulled on each other again and again, until the moon became tidally locked. That is why one side always faces us. The moon still moves around Earth, but it turns in such a way that we keep seeing the same face in the sky. The moon also became a great memory stone. On Earth, wind blows, rain falls, rivers move, mountains change. But on the moon, there is no weather like ours. No wind, no flowing water on the surface. Because of that, marks from ancient impacts can stay there for billions of years. The craters on the moon are like old pages in a book. They tell the history of violence, change, and survival in the early solar system. Then, much later, Earth cooled too. Oceans formed, life began, and after a very long time, people arrived. We do not know the name of the first person who looked up and truly wondered about the moon. But we know that for thousands of years, human beings watched it carefully. It was bright, close, and always changing. Sometimes it was thin and silver. Sometimes round and full. Sometimes it seemed to disappear. Then it returned again. For early people, the moon was more than a light in the dark. It was a clock. It was a guide. The cycle of lunar phases repeats in about 29.5 days. So many cultures used the moon to help measure time. People planted, traveled, prayed, and told stories under its light. They did not have rockets or telescopes, but they had eyes, memory, and imagination. The moon also touched daily life in another important way. It helped shape the tides. When the moon and sun line up with Earth, spring tides happen, and the difference between high and low tide becomes greater. When the moon is at first or last quarter, neap tides happen, and the difference becomes smaller. Many people in old fishing communities may not have known the physics, but they knew the moon mattered. The sea itself taught them that. And then there were eclipses. Sometimes Earth's shadow moved across the moon, making a lunar eclipse. Sometimes the moon moved between Earth and the sun, making a solar eclipse. To ancient people, these events could feel strange, beautiful, and even frightening. Today, we understand them better, but they still have power. Even now, when the sky suddenly grows dark in daytime, many people stop and stare and wonder. For many centuries, people made stories about the moon. Some saw a face there. Some saw a rabbit. Some believed the moon was a god, or a goddess, or a lantern hung in the sky. That is one of the most human parts of this story. Before science explained the moon, imagination carried it. And, in a way, imagination never left. It simply walked beside knowledge. Then one day, in the early 1700s of modern science, people began to look at the moon in a new way. A man named Galileo turned a telescope toward it. What he saw changed everything. He saw that the moon was not a perfect, smooth heavenly ball. It had mountains, rough places, and shadows. The moon was a real world, not just a symbol in the sky. That discovery was quiet, but it was huge. If the moon was a real place, then maybe the heavens were not separate from Earth after all. Maybe the sky was not a perfect crystal world. Maybe it was physical, touchable, knowable. Step by step, question by question, people began to study the moon with mathematics, maps, and better telescopes. It moved from myth into science, while still keeping its beauty. Even so, for a very long time, the moon stayed far away. People could draw it, measure it, and dream about it, but they could not go there. Generations were born, lived, and died under moonlight, still wondering what the dust felt like, still wondering what waited on the hidden far side. That question stayed with humanity for centuries. Then the 20th century arrived, and human beings learned to fly. Then they learned to build rockets. Then, after wars, inventions, and great political competition, the space age began. In the 1950s, lunar exploration truly started. Robots went first, because robots could take the risk before people did. In 1959, the Soviet spacecraft Luna 1 became the first spacecraft to fly by the moon. It did not land, but it opened the door. Suddenly, the moon was no longer only an object for telescopes. It was a destination for machines built by human hands. A dream that had lived in stories was becoming engineering. Only a few years later, in 1966, Luna 9 achieved the first soft landing on the moon. Think about that moment. A machine from Earth came down onto another world and survived. The moon was no longer just above us. It had become a place where we could arrive. Gently, carefully, successfully. The race continued. The United States and the Soviet Union both pushed forward. Cameras went, instruments went, orbiters went. Scientists learned more about craters, lava plains, mountains, and the difficulty of landing safely. Every mission taught a lesson. Every failure taught one too. Space exploration was brave, but it was never easy. Then came one of the biggest moments in all human history. Apollo 11. On July 16, 1969, the mission launched from Earth. On board were Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins. Their goal was clear and extraordinary: to land people on the moon and bring them safely home. Millions of people watched and listened. And on July 20th, 1969, Armstrong and Aldrin reached the lunar surface, while Collins remained in orbit. Human feet touched the moon for the first time. It was not a story, not a painting, not a dream. It was real. Dust rose, boots pressed into the ground, and a human voice spoke from another world. It is hard to explain how large that moment felt. The moon had watched over human history from the sky for thousands of years, and now a tiny part of humanity stood there and looked back at Earth. Imagine the silence. Imagine the black sky. Imagine seeing our whole world small and bright in the distance. Home, all of it, hanging in darkness. Apollo 11 was not the end. More Apollo missions followed. Astronauts walked, drove, collected rocks, set up experiments, and learned how the moon was made. The samples they brought back became extremely important. They helped scientists understand that the moon formed from a giant impact, and that it had once been molten. Those gray rocks helped tell the story of the beginning. The last humans on the moon in the Apollo era were the crew of Apollo 17 in 1972. After that, people stopped going there, not because the moon became unimportant, but because history moved, money changed, priorities changed, and space programs turned to other goals. For many years, the moon became quieter again. But quiet is not the same as forgotten. Scientists kept studying lunar samples. Telescopes kept watching. And later, robots returned. They came with better cameras, better computers, and new questions. The moon was no longer only about flags and first steps. It was about science, water, ice, future bases, and what the moon could teach us about Earth and the solar system. A very important modern mission was NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, or LRO. It launched in 2009, and it has studied the moon up close ever since. NASA says it is the longest-lived lunar orbiting mission ever. LRO has mapped the surface in great detail and measured temperature, composition, and radiation. This work helps scientists understand the moon better and helps future missions choose safer landing places. Modern missions also gave new attention to the lunar poles, especially the South Pole. These areas are exciting because some deep craters there do not receive sunlight, and ice may be trapped in those cold shadows. Water matters in space. It matters for science, for future explorers, and for the dream of staying longer on the moon instead of only visiting it quickly. The moon is now a world explored by many nations, not only one or two. In 2023, India's Chandrayaan-3 successfully soft-landed on the moon. This was a proud and historic moment, especially because the mission aimed for the South Polar region. The lander and rover helped continue the new age of lunar exploration. Then, in 2024, China's Chang'e 6 made history on the far side of the moon. It touched down there and collected samples. Later, those far side samples were brought back to Earth. This was the first time in human history that samples had been returned from that rarely explored side, and it gave scientists a rare chance to study one of the moon's oldest and deepest regions. This part of the story is very important because it shows something beautiful. The moon still belongs to wonder, but now wonder is shared. Different countries, different engineers, different scientists, different languages, all looking up at the same world, all trying to understand it better. The moon has become a meeting place for human curiosity. And now we come to the present, to the part of the story that is still moving while we speak. NASA's Artemis program was created to return humans to deep space and back to the moon. Artemis 1 flew without a crew in 2022, testing the systems that would later carry astronauts. After that came Artemis 2. According to NASA, Artemis 2 launched in April 2026 and is the first crewed test flight of the Space Launch System rocket and Orion spacecraft on a journey around the moon. NASA also says this mission is the first time in more than 50 years that astronauts have flown around the moon. On April 7, 2026, NASA reported that the crew had completed the lunar observation period and had begun the return trip home. I think that is a wonderful thing to pause and feel for a moment. The story of the moon is not finished. It is not only ancient, it is also happening now. Right now, in our own time, people are still circling it, studying it, planning new landings, and preparing for a future in which the moon may become a stepping stone to even deeper space, perhaps one day to Mars. And through all of this, the moon still does the simple things it has always done. It still shines on quiet fields. It still pulls the tides. It still moves through its 8 familiar phases: new moon, waxing crescent, first quarter, waxing gibbous, full moon, waning gibbous, third quarter, waning crescent. Month after month, year after year, it stays both ordinary and amazing at the same time. Maybe that is why people love the moon so much. It is scientific, but also personal. It is far away, but always above us. It is ancient, but still part of today. The moon saw the first oceans on Earth. It watched dinosaurs come and go. It watched the first human fires, the first boats, the first cities, the first telescopes, the first rockets, and now the new missions of our own century. When you look at the moon tonight, you are not only seeing a bright circle in the sky, you are seeing the result of a giant collision from the first days of the solar system. You are seeing a world that keeps the marks of ancient impacts. You are seeing the same moon that guided early calendars, inspired myths, challenged Galileo, welcomed Apollo, and is calling people back again now. And I think there is something comforting in that. Our lives are short, but the moon reminds us that we are part of a much longer story, a story of fire, cooling oceans, questions, courage, and return. From the very beginning to now, the moon has been a companion to Earth, and in many ways, to us too. Thank you for listening with me today. I hope this story brought you a little wonder and a little peace. You are doing something beautiful every time you listen and learn in English. I am proud of you. Tell me what story you would like next. And if you enjoyed this gentle journey to the moon, please like, comment, and subscribe so we can keep traveling through English together.